7 steps to take when starting over after a failure. This is episode 497.
Welcome to TerryWilson3.com.
Decade of helping others
Discover, develop, and monetize your skills and talents
at TerryWilson3.com.
This is the Terry Wilson. Really, I'm excited, Terry. I want to get started.
You're the real deal, right? You're the genuine article.
Right now, Terry, I'm so inspired after listening to you for the last 25, 30 minutes to go back and do about 400 things. You got me so jazzed up.
I'm still blown away by your story.
When I think of Terry Wilson, I think about the comeback kid.
You're like a cousin or an uncle that I just want to hang out with.
Terry, you have made a huge impact in my life.
Can't possibly say enough good things about you except that I love you.
Here's your host, Terry Wilson.
Successful people like to win and achieve high standards. This can make them so terrified of failure, it ruins their lives. When a positive trait like achievement becomes too strong in someone's life, it's on the way to becoming a major handicap. No one likes to fail. Whether it's at work, at home, or in another area of your life, failure is painful and can also be costly in terms of time, money, or even both. But failing is part of the game. That is life, says Karl Smith, author and founder of Business Networking in South Africa. Something which cannot be avoided. Surprisingly, most people don't talk openly about their failures. They'll tell you about the great new contract they signed, not that deal they worked on for months, only to have it slip through their fingers. In dealing with the obstacles that faced several of us in business, and it's cliche around here at TW3, there's one thing I believe, and I believe it so strongly. Failure should be our teacher, not our undertaker. Failure is a delay. It's not defeat. Failure is a temporary detour, not a dead-end street. Failure prevents arrogance and egotism. It accelerates the process of identifying your true friends. It also causes you to reevaluate what's important in life. It brings out the real character in you. You get to meet the real you when you're faced with failure. There's nothing wrong with a plan, but don't get too attached to it. Make the necessary changes. Remember von Moltke's famous dictum that no plan survives with contact with the enemy. The danger is a plan that seduces us into thinking failure is impossible and adaptation is unnecessary. A kind of Titanic plan, unsinkable, until, the story, the iceberg hits it. If you don't grow through your failures, then you will go through it again and again and again. Some people cannot deal with failure, so they never try anything. The result? Nothing. Nothing can happen without action. Life is all about taking action, and inevitably, with that action comes risk. As a high-stakes conference and keynote speaker, trainer, coach, Karl Smith has worked with thousands of senior executives and entrepreneurs, and he says this: without failure, there is no way of learning what you do not know. So here are 7 things I think we should all learn, and actions, that is steps that we should take when we're starting over after a failure. So number 1, accept responsibility for your own failure. When it comes to failing, our egos are our own worst enemies. If you made a mistake, admit it. Welcome to the human race. Don't blame others or circumstances. For many of you, you know my story of how I owned a music company and I was fairly successful in the early 2000s, all the way up till the Great Recession of 2007, third quarter of 2007, and then eventually going under in 2008. For the first couple of years, I blamed business partners, I blamed the economy, I blamed the industry, I blamed politics, I blamed everyone but the one who should take responsibility. And it was only until I started self-evaluating and start looking at what could I have done different that changes really didn't start occurring in me that needed to change so that I could put myself in a better position to come back. Listen, I love that quote. Failure should always be our teacher, not our undertaker. But the biggest thing that we all, I think, from time to time have to get rid of and just constantly work on and be cognizant of that we all have is this thing called an ego. I think you know the positive thinking crowd, and I'm one of them. I'm in that camp. But one of the excesses to that thought process and mindset is an overcorrection in these negative Nancy, Debbie Downers, doubting Thomas people that they always see that the cup half empty. They always see the problems. They never see the solutions. And they always extrapolate the wrong lessons from failure and risk. And so it goes something like that. Listen, I tried that. It didn't work. You shouldn't do it. Listen, all of these things are scams. Listen, this is just a hoax. That don't try this. Don't take that risk. Don't try because it's just this. The odds are so far against you. It's not worth the risk. That is the excess in being just so cynical, so jaded because of failures that you literally have accepted the wrong lesson in that failure. Failure should wake us up. Failure should make us sober-minded. But failure should never deter us and to demoralize us and to diminish our dreams, our hopes, our ambitions, and our wants, that we know that we were born for such a time as this, that we know that greatness was breathed on the inside of us. We know that we're called to be more, experience more, enjoy more, have more influence, more, have a greater impact. We're supposed to be the biggest, baddest, best version of ourselves that we possibly can. And any thought process, any mindset, any attitude that would cause any of us to shrink back from that, well, that needs to be corrected. And that's where I'm at in the mindset camp and in the positive thinking camp and in the self-affirmation and self-efficacy camp and the camp that says you can do it. But yes, there are risks, but part of the journey, part of the value of the journey is learning how to assign the proper meaning and the proper interpretation to the failure and to the pain and to the letdowns and the setbacks and the turndowns and all of the bumps in the roads. I get to choose the meaning that I assign to that. But woe is me, and careful and be eyes wide open to assign the right meaning. Don't go over the top. It's everybody else's fault. I did it right. And then I'm just going to go do it again. Well, you're going to have the same problem. And I mean, I was in a meeting last week and they were asking, why is your company structured this way? And why did you do it this way? And it's so different because, and I said, I can take you back to, I could structure my business exactly like I did in the early 2000s. We could have great success, but it would not be sustainable if, for God forbid, something happened and something shifted or changed in the economy. And guess what? I've got to go through some mild recessions. I've got to go through a pandemic. I've got to go through several different challenging times in the last 13 and a half years of doing this new business, this new type of business. And it has not only survived, it's actually thrived through those time periods. How did that happen? By getting honest with myself and, number one, accepting the responsibility of the failures I've had in the past, assigning the right meaning, and being bold enough to dare pray a prayer, the most dangerous prayer in the entire Bible. There's a passage there where it says, David says, "Search me, O God, and let me know if there's any iniquity within me." I tell you, when you can get emotionally, spiritually, psychologically healthy enough to say and ask God Ask your counselors. Ask people that love you the most, that knows you the most, that wants to help you, not hurt you. Tell me where my blind side is. Tell me where my downsides are. Tell me where my weaknesses are. Tell me what I'm not seeing. Tell me what you think would make a better version of me. Where do I need to work on? When you can get to the point where you can honestly ask those types of questions, get ready. Because there's two things that's going to happen. Number one, pain. But number two, promotion. I'm telling you, going to the next level. You are going to be able to earn more, enjoy more, experience more. You are going to be able to do things you never were able to do before, simply because you had the courage to face your failures and the reason why you failed. So number one, accept responsibility for your own failures. Number two, recognize when you haven't succeeded. Recognize it. Don't try to slap lipstick on a pig. Don't call something that's bad good just because, here again, your ego. This is the hard part. We've been trained that persistence pays off. So it feels wrong to cut our losses and label an idea a failure. But if you're truly self-aware and listening closely after the release of an idea, you can't go wrong. Being able to recognize a failure just means that you'll be able to recast it into something more likely to succeed. Failure teaches you what doesn't work. Back in 2020, the first quarter for 2020, I invested several thousands of dollars in a brand new software system that I infused into our membership. That was a CRM system that was working with our WordPress website and would integrate our forms and our funnels and all different types of stuff. And it only had one problem. It was connected to Amazon Web Services that through our membership was hard to keep engaged and active because, as an open membership, we can't just police every single person and how they use it. And from time to time, no matter how much we said, this is how you use it, this is how you do it, this is how you use these technologies, specifically the email marketing system, the text marketing system, teaching how to do it effectively so that you're not spamming people, how to do it to where it's affordable, how to do it to where you're compliant, not only with the laws, which is very important in the first thing, but secondly, compliant with Amazon Web Services, better business practices, and so you don't get shut down. Well, because of the design of that software and the system, the back end system that was pushing out that data, it became about a $38,000 huge failure. And we tried for months to repatch, to redesign, to set it up differently, to do all kinds of things. And at some point, I had to look at myself and say, how much time, energy, and sweat am I going to put into something that's just not going to work for our application? And lo and behold, because of that failure, the TW3 app was born. Had I not just recognized and accepted the fact this software product that we have brought into our membership as an added benefit, as an added feature, didn't charge anything to our members to have this brand new system, got everybody excited. It was wonderful. Everybody wanted to use it. It was basically the missing piece to what we needed to complete our entire suite of marketing systems and customer acquisition products and everything that we needed to just be. It just patched up everything. We are now a complete business in a box. The hope was through this. Had I just kept pushing forward, it would have continued to fail. It would continue to fail. And I would never have found this brand new application that does everything the other one promised, plus 100 things more, and opened up a whole new market, completely new business strategies and verticals are being developed. It has literally opened TW3 up to be able to go in so many more directions and deeper into the direction that we have been going, and opening up all new business opportunities. And it's just absolutely amazing. But it only happened because I had to recognize I'm not winning here. This is not succeeding. So number 2, recognize when you haven't succeeded. Number 1, accept responsibility for your failure. Number 2, recognize when you haven't succeeded. Number 3, make sure the pieces from your failure have been sufficiently picked up. Make sure the pieces from your failure have been sufficiently picked up. If you have a reputation to repair, then take care of that immediately, so your future ventures will be taken seriously by those around you. This was crucial for me back in 08, 09. I had a reputation to be a salesperson. I had a reputation to be an entrepreneur. I had a reputation to be a business owner. I had a reputation that this is someone that can solve problems. This is someone that can start a business and grow it from nothing and take off. But while I'm sitting back licking my wounds, blaming the world, shaking my fist at God, and all of this other toxic, negative, non-productive energy that I was just engaged in, I was not living up to my reputation. So while I was trying this and doing this, nothing was been taken serious. Nothing, because I wasn't living out what I was, my reputation stated I was. Because I wanted to now identify as just the business failure rather than identifying as the entrepreneur, the businessman that knows technology, that knows sales and marketing, that knows how to build businesses and can do that. I wanted to just go clock out and just check in or check out of life and just go work for someone. Well, no one was taking me serious. It wasn't until I decided this is not who I am. This is not what I'm about. This is not what I've spent the first part of my career. I've been working at that point, 11, 12 years, 13 years already. But I was trying to be something I wasn't simply because I was afraid, I was scared because I had just failed. So, number 3, make sure the pieces from your failure have been sufficiently picked up. If you need to take time to get healed, if you need to take time to reflect, if you need to take time to go deeper into your own psyche to understand who you are and, more importantly, why you are, then take the time and do it. But pick up the pieces and do the work. Number 4, remind yourself of your past success. This is huge. Remind yourself of your past success. Failing doesn't mean that you're worthless or that you'll never achieve the things you want. Think of all the times in the past when you have succeeded. Don't forget your past failures. You've made mistakes before and you've survived them. Just as you recovered in the past, you can recover from your recent failure too. At one time when I was just coming off of my losing the business, filing bankrupt, losing the house, being kicked out, trying to scramble and find something, the only thing that gave me any sliver of courage or boldness or gall to even try again was it occurred to me, Terry, this is the first time you've ever failed in business. If you were looking at this in the paradigm of a sport, then your stats should tell you more often than not, you're going to be okay. So suck it up, Buttercup. But what was amazing was here again, we get to decide the meaning we assign to the experiences we have. You have the power within yourself to assign the meaning of every experience you have. That's very important. So, yes, things are going to happen, but what meaning do you assign to those things? That's going to dictate how far you go and how quick you bounce back, and if you bounce back, and when you bounce back, how much further you can go than you did prior. So take control of that power. And one of the things that was amazing to me during that time period was I was complaining to myself. I was begroaning the fact that I had had success early on. I got to thinking, had I not gotten recruited into sales early on, a kid in high school, had I not started making money quick early on, had I not started making really good money in sales when I went to work for a family-owned music company, had I not had this success, had I not at the age of 23, 24 started my own music business and having success there, had I not had so much early success, making so much money and doing so well, I would have not been in the situation I'm in now, because it just gave me this false sense of accomplishment and courage that I should not have had. That early on was the meaning that I was assigning to the success I had had. Now, can you hear how there's two ways to look at that? There was two ways to look at that success. I could look at that success for what it was, which was, Terry, you have it within you. You have the drive. You have the ambition. You have the skill set. You have the talent. You have the experience. You have the know-how. You have everything you need to be in business, to be in sales, to be in anything you want to be. You've done it before. There's no reason why. And everything from here thereafter would tell you you've been successful. It's just this one moment in time, this one thing that while you are responsible for it, you couldn't control everything. So it stands to reason that statistically speaking, you should be able to bounce back, pivot, and go somewhere else, do something else. But for a good solid year or so after losing everything and that big failure, my mindset was I was griping. I was moaning. I was whining about and saying, dear God, why did you let me have all of this early success only to, I felt like I was being played with, that I was being toyed with, that I was being monkeyed with, that it was just some big, sport that the universe, my God, was having with me. Can you hear the self-pity? Can you hear the self-defeating attitude in that? But the very moment that I started assigning the correct lesson, the correct meaning to that failure was the very moment that my business literally started taking off. So remind yourself, number 4, remind yourself of your past success. Number 5, and this is difficult, but it has to be done. Make a decision. Doing nothing is certainly an option, but it's a decision in itself, and often one that won't lead to anything positive. Your decision might require some deep thinking. You can't help yourself to make better decisions by getting some extra advice and support. So get that. You can help yourself with a particular area of your life or reading and learning more if a lack of knowledge led you to your failure. But you have to start making decisions again. And the hardest thing to do after a major failure is to make a decision. And there was an interesting study that the military actually figured out after really getting involved and understanding, the whole dynamic of PTSD, of our bravest and brightest and treasure of this country, our military that was coming back from war. One of the things that we discovered in studying this, we as a people, we as a human race, we as Americans in this study, was it doesn't matter, for years and years and years, you and I have always been taught, or at least it was understood, that making a decision is a logical exercise. Okay. I like this. I want this stat, or I want this technical thing with the car. I want this color. I want, this type of gas mileage and all. In other words, I'm looking at all of these analytics. I'm looking at all this data. This is what I want. It's more practical to have a car that functions this way with this gas mileage because I live in this area of the country and I need it for this, so it serves this utility. Logic. And so we have all assumed that the decision-making process is a logical making effort, a logical exercise, mental exercise, cognitive exercise. That's what, most people have always assumed until the military popped the top on this several years ago. And what they found was that people with emotional trauma, people that suffered, the frontal part where emotions would come from in the mind, if there was some emotional trauma there, that it was almost impossible for a person to make even a binary decision, left or right, let alone a complex decision. So the whole study, I'll bottom line this. When we are in emotional trauma, when you are in the state of emotional trauma, the decision-making process is almost impossible, because what we've all figured out through this, and sales professionals have been teaching this for years, but now it's just mainstream science, that the decision-making process, or as we say, the buying-making process, but it's all the same. The decision-making process is an emotional decision backed up by logic. And if I'm in emotional trauma, if my brain has been damaged to where my emotions are out of whack, or if I'm in this state of trauma to where I'm numbed out because my mind and my hormones and my biology and chemistry has come to rescue me emotionally, to just get me out of this state of trauma mentally and emotionally. If I'm traumatized in some way where I just don't feel the emotions the way I should, if I'm in any type of altered state where my emotions are all out of whack, I'm telling you, your decision-making process has become out of whack. And so when it comes to making a decision, I would tell you the best thing you can do is find peace. Because you are not going to make good decisions until you are in a state of peace. Peace is the breadbasket of good decisions. It's amazing to me. One of the things that we teach our people at TW3 in the recruiting space, we've got some high level training and recruiting on this when we're talking to sales professionals that are building a sales organization or something. When you're talking to people about recruiting them into your business to sell insurance, real estate, or some other thing, one of the key knockout questions to me, and it's not even a question, it's in that process. I want to see if I hear any anxiety, any trauma that's going on. Because if there's high anxiety, if there's high emotional unrest, that tells me that the decision that's being made there is not going to be a clear, sober, open-minded, wide-eyed decision. A good decision can't be made in that state. So do yourself a favor, because you're going to have to start making decisions again. And the only way you can make good decisions is be in a state of peace. So find peace. Number 6, forget the past and focus on the future. Forget the past and focus on the future. The quicker you can deal with the failure, the quicker you are already ready for success. Your past is the past. It's water under the bridge. You can't change it, so you might as well stop worrying about it. Take stock of what you have learned, repackage your knowledge, experience, skills, and move on and accomplish your purpose. Tell you, the best way to forget about the past is neutralize the emotional trauma to the past that you have. See, a lot of times when people say you got to forget about the past, Paul says there, he says, I forget those things which are behind me and I press on to the higher calling that's in front of me. People misunderstand what he's talking about there. He's not saying I intellectually deny and I won't allow my mind to recognize the facts of what happened in the past. It's not what he's saying. He's saying, I am going to be emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically removed and detached from the power of the events that are now behind me. And there is a grace that comes through peace that allows you to do that. But if you're ever going to be able to bounce back, to come back, to go to the next level from a failure, the quicker you can develop that spiritual and psychological and emotional muscle. And the way you do that, how do you do that? You say, Terry, how do you do it? You have to do it the same way I've done it and other people have done it in different areas. How does someone find love again after a terrible, terrible breakup or divorce? How does someone start a business over again after a terrible, terrible loss of a business and bankruptcy? How does Job lose everything and then come back and have another family, another business and everything? You know, the whole story of Job, you know, and the end of the story is he got double for the trouble. But how do you go from the failure to the future of nothing but prosperity? You have to learn to assign the correct meaning to everything that happened and put it in the correct context and framework. Because here again, your failure is either going to be your teacher or it's going to be your undertaker, and you have the power to choose. I love what Guy Kawasaki said. He says, sometimes I win and sometimes I learn. You've got to have that mental state and that mental awareness that everything that's going on in your life, everything that you're experiencing in your business, in the highways and the byways that you're out and about, everything can be a benefit to you. You can prosper from every stinking thing that touches your life if you will assign the right meaning to it. You have the power to do it. But if you're listening to the negative Nancy's, the Debbie Downers, the people, the woe is me crowd, the people that says, well, I tried it and failed, it must be everything's, you know, misery loves company because the more company they have, the more their own failures are validated that it's not their fault. However, if they're standing in the corner by themselves failing, then all of a sudden it's a hard, that spotlight is a hard one to stand under, because all of a sudden, oh, maybe it is me. Well, yes, it is. But here's the thing. Don't take it as, you know, well, I'm just no good. I'm not. Take it as it is me, but it don't have to be me. I can change. I can modify my behavior. But see, modifying behavior, changing attitudes, doing things different, it's hard. It's difficult to change. But it is a prerequisite if you're ever going to experience more. If you're ever going to have more, you're ever going to enjoy more, you've got to be able to change. And change is so hard. Changing your mind is hard. Changing your attitude is hard. Changing your habits are hard. Change is hard, but it is required if you ever want more. If you want to lose weight, what are you going to do? If you're going to earn more money, what do you got to do? If you want to have more friends, what do you have to do? Well, you have to do things different. You got to change. Yes, it's hard, but my God, it is worth it. Folks, for my whole life, all I ever wanted to do is talk to people, inspire people, encourage people, give them a strategy, a system, a way of going from point A to point B. I would dream about it. As a 7-year-old child, watching Perry Mason on black and white TV at my grandmother's house, I was like, dude, if I could just get up in front of an audience with a suit and tie on and persuade them that this is the justice, this is what, he was inspiring people. It's not this guy's fault, it's this guy, I'm going back to Perry Mason. Or moving on up, when I would watch pastors at church, that was just so inspiring, so encouraging, taking people from the mully grubs to something more, taking people from a life of hurt and pain and despair and hopelessness to a life that's worth living, that was full of purpose, that infused their passion, that gave them something. Then I would watch business people as I got older. My whole life, all I've wanted to do, all I've ever wanted to do is not make a lot of money, not be famous, not do anything, but to be able to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is behind a microphone, whether it be in a podcast or a pulpit, and letting people know that you are worth more. You can have more. You can do more. If you will simply stop listening to the naysayers and the Debbie Downers and the people, and it could be your voice, it could be that teacher's voice, it could be that aunt, uncle, that family member's voice. I don't know whose voice it is in your head that's telling you that you can't. But if you could somehow develop the courage and dare to just take a step away from all that negative nonsense and dare to dream again, and just have just a little bit, just the faith of a mustard seed to take the first step and not quit, and then take the next step. You're not gonna get it tomorrow. Whatever it is you want, it ain't coming tomorrow. But you could be one step closer. So you have to forget the past. 7, and finally, revisit your vision. Stephen Covey wrote this: all things are created twice. There's a mental creation of it first, and then a physical creation of it second. When you revisit your vision, you'll be focused on the most logical steps to take and build relationships with the right kind of people you would need to realize it. So revisit your vision. What is your vision? We're coming up on the new year. I've got a podcast training that we're going to blow it open for our next live podcast. And I'm going to give out 22 challenges for 2022. 22 challenges for 2022. I think, I'm not going over, the whole New Year's resolution thing and all this other stuff that's been done. I think it's been worn out, but I do want to challenge people. I want to challenge people's status quo. I want to challenge their vision. What do you see for yourself? Where are you going to be at next year at this time? What are you going to do about it? See, change, got to make it. And it's okay. And failure, it's okay. As long as you assign the right meaning. Sometimes I win. Sometimes I learn. It's okay. As long as I'm going in the direction that I know I was called and created to go, as long as my vision is clear, as long as I don't lose sight of not only who I am, but why I am. When you have that clarity, I'm telling you, no downturn, no discouragement, no derogatory comments on social media or anywhere else, no demeaning attitude, nothing is going to get me off course. It's a funny story. We're on vacation right now, and yesterday, while we were all just kicking out of gear, playing golf and doing some other stuff down at the beach, we have this chat bot on our website. It sort of handles our tickets. It handles, our customers that are coming over to TerryWilson3.com, and there's some stock responses that it'll give out and sort of engage a client and all that until they have time to book appointment to talk to an actual real person, live person. And this person, bless his heart, and if you don't know what bless his heart means in the South, ask a Southerner what that means. But bless his heart, he was having a bad day, or just maybe he was dropped on his head as a child. I don't know where the cognitive dissonance came from, but this poor fella, someone needs to unplug his devices because he needs to be under supervision. We literally was cracking up that this guy was just arguing with a robot. He was just going at it left and right, just dropping the F-bomb and racial slurs and all of this other stuff. And no one's talking to him. It's just the robot saying, if you would like to talk to someone, here's a link to book and time appointment. And he Thank you for reaching out. No one's here right now, but if you would like to set up a time to talk, right here's a. And we were just scratching our head and says, this guy is literally peeing in the wind. But I say that just to say, when you are doing anything, when you're out making a difference in the world, when you're putting yourself out there, you're going to run into some people. You're going, because, the stress and the anxiety of our society and our culture and our current events, it's not helping a lot of people. It's just not, because they're assigning the wrong meaning to it. They are letting the worst thoughts and ideas dictate their attitudes rather than taking the events on the ground and assigning the correct meaning and actually prospering from it. They're actually losing their minds over it. And so I just say to you, because obviously if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're looking for the opportunity to go to greater levels. You are one of the ones that says, the status quo is not acceptable. I know I'm called to do more. I know I'm equipped to do more. I know I've got the capacity, the God-given talents, gifts, and abilities. Got a purpose here, and I want to fulfill it. That's why you listen to podcasts like mine and others. Well, I just say all this to tell you, don't let these folks, some I think the kids call them the haters, they're going to be there. It's part of the crowd, but it's just part of the noise, and we actually reached out to them live and tried to, and I think there's some problems there. So I don't think that we're able to do anything there. But my point to you is this. One of my challenges, I'll let the cat out of the bag, is actually take the most challenging people and turn them into the greatest cheerleaders you have. So that's some of the things I'm going to be working on and strategies to do in the coming year. Just because I think, out of 10 people, I might not get but one. But that'd been one I wouldn't have had before. And what's it going to take? Just a tiny little extra effort, energy, in a plan. More just having a plan in place to be able to figure something out that's going to help some people and maybe try to turn a negative into a positive. So I hope you got something out of this today. I hope this was encouraging. Put a comment down below in this podcast. If you're listening to it on the website, this is TerryWilson3.com. You can go over to TerryWilson3.com/497. This should be the link to it. But I would love to get your feedback on what you think about these 7 strategies, 7 steps to take when you are starting over after a failure. And just to repeat, that's accept responsibility, number 1. Number 2, recognize when you haven't succeeded. Number 3, make sure the pieces from your failure have been sufficiently picked up. Number 4, remind yourself of your past successes. Number 5, make a decision. Number 6, forget the past and focus on the future. Number 7, and finally, revisit your vision. So I will see you later.
Thank you for listening to our show today at TerryWilson3.com.
Get a free sample copy of the book You Are Worth More by going to TerryWilson3.com now.
If you would like more information on how we can take your money, your business, and your life to the next level, then please visit us online at TerryWilson3.com.